What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to work on the Cobra. Okay, so we need to get a couple things done on the car today. First off, I want you guys to look at the interior. It is not done, but we do have the floor mats back in, and for some reason they are a lot lighter than the back, but it is what it is. These are the original floor mats with the car, I assume anyway, but this is what we've got right now. The console has been pretty much cleaned up of all the gunk. But one thing I do want to show you guys is how to restore your third brake light on one of these cars, or any car for that matter. It looks like crap. Why spend the money whenever you already have one? So we're going to remove the third brake light, and the way you do this is if you look under the trunk here, you see a series of lights, and all you want to do is twist and pull, unplug all of your lights here. Okay, and this last light is just your trunk light. That's all that is. And it's going to be a 10mm socket. You go ahead, take those out, and then this thing should pop right out of the top. And I'll be rolling down the street, smoking in, sipping on gin and juice, laid back, with my mind on my money and my money on my mind. Rolling down the street. So there are only 2 bolts that hold this thing in, but I do want to go ahead and warn you guys ahead of time. When you put this third brake light back in, make sure that you seal it up properly. That's a big hole that goes straight into the trunk of your car, guys. And the quickest and easiest way to do that is test it with a water hose after you put this back in. Run some water over it and see if you get any leaks. That way you can go ahead and address them right then. All right, so I have some 1500 grit right here. And the key to this is to sand until you see the white stuff coming off. So I'll put this up here for you guys so that you can see. You can see as I sand, the white milkiness starts to come off. You must get every bit of that off. And remember, do not go in a circular motion. You can go back and forth and up and down, but do not go in a circular motion. There's a big difference between this and that. And that's what you're looking for. So what we're going to do is sand the rest of this down, and then we're going to come in with our small buffer, and we're going to buff this thing back out. Now, before we get started, I will mention that there's 2 ways of doing this. My favorite way of doing this is to wet sand this out with 400 grit. It knocks it out real quick like, and then come back with clear coat. Put your clear coat over this, and that's what's going to make it last. You can get some 2K clear in a can. I'll put a little picture up and maybe a link to some on maybe Amazon for you guys. But that's what I would recommend to use on this if you want this to last. Now I'm going to buff it. It's going to look really good, but it's not going to last as long as clear coat. All right, guys, let's go ahead and finish this up. My posse's on Broadway. Posse up. My posse's on Broadway. Overall, this looks pretty good. It's pretty uniform. There's a little bit down here on this end that I'm going to address before we polish it, and a little right there. Other than that though, I think this thing is going to come right back to life. All right, we've got it ready to go. Now all we're going to do is use some finish cut, and we're going to use the little Milwaukee here. Once again, I will put a link up, so if you would like to purchase it, by all means, click the link down below and have yourself one. This thing is really great for small stuff like this, or headlights, tail lights. Put a couple drops here. And we are just going to... Here's the story of the hurricane. The man the authorities came to blame for something that he never done. So now what we're going to do is just flip it up on its end, run the buffer over this, and we should be good to go, guys. Keep your head. We'll go ahead and wipe everything off and see what we've got. This is what we have. Looks a ton better than it did. So this is what you can do with just a little buffer and some sandpaper. It's not perfect, but that's okay. It saved us a lot of money, and this is going to look great back on the car. And I'll go ahead and show you a before and after. think the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and attack this cowl. It's busted to pieces. It needs to be replaced. So we have a used one off of another car. All I did was go in with some trim black and touch it up and make it look a lot better. But first off, I'll show you what it is we're working with. So as you can see, this cowling is busted up, which is very common on these cars. And if you guys aren't aware, these are brittle. So don't think you can just go pop one off and pop another one on. You have to be so very careful with these things or they will bust on you. First thing you have to do is just take your windshield wipers off. The way you do this is you pull back and you pull this tab out, and then you let the windshield wiper lay down. So these are super simple to do. You can even probably do it with one hand. Lift up, let it touch that tab, and when it does, it releases the windshield wiper. Now you just pull up. So on these cowls, they're pretty easy to remove. Really, this pillar should be removed, but if you're very careful, you can usually get these things out without breaking. But like I said, you got to be very careful. There are a few push pins across the top, so just reach in, get these things out. And there's one over here also. A lot of times these are already missing on these cars, but always check because you will break it if you don't look for those. Don't forget your washer fluid hose under here. You have to disconnect that first. Now that we have that off, this is a good time if you have any leaves or debris or anything under here, go ahead, clean it all out. You want to make sure you go ahead and get that out because what that'll do is cause rust later on down the road. You don't have to live up north and be around all the salt to have rust like that. A lot of times living down south with all these leaves and all the humidity and everything just stays real damp. A lot of times we get rust down in the corners of stuff like this. Not that it couldn't happen anywhere in the world, but just saying, just because it's a southern car doesn't mean that it's not going to have rust. Oh yeah, this thing's going to make a big difference. All right, so right here in the corners, as you can see, that's why I was saying it's actually best to remove these pillars, but they're not the easiest thing in the world to do. There usually is enough play in these things where you can kind of just bow them in. Just give it a little push like that, and it should go right in. There you go. We have the cowling on the car. It looks a lot better. Let's go ahead and finish talking about what needs to be done to this car. So we have the mirror over there that needs to be replaced. Had to finish putting that door panel back together. That's just a couple little pieces here and there. Vacuum and shampoo the carpet, then detail. That's pretty much it on the interior. Then the big thing is running the buffer over the car. Like I told you guys before, I'm not going to go all out with this thing. We're not wet sanding, we're not buffing. It does have a couple slight little dings in it here and there. This door needs to be repainted. It's got a couple spots on it, so I figure I'll go ahead and show you guys this stuff now because, you know, I am talking about, you know, the car being available for sale at some point. So this up here would need to be addressed. That's it, guys. It's just little stuff like that. Overall, there's really no clear coat or anything coming off the car. As you can see over here in this door and this fender where I polished it out, it's going to be a very presentable car. Just knocking little things out here and there as we can. One of the things I want to talk about real quick though, because that car reminded me of it, on your tail lights back here, we all need to be checking our tail lights. I'll try to throw up some pictures here. On the back side of these tail lights, they're like, I think it's 3 cushions that go back here, and they're essentially seals is what it is. The rain runs down here and it gets in behind your tail lights. Now what'll happen there is it'll go behind those seals and it'll get down into the body of the car. I noticed that on my car. When I opened the trunk up, I started looking around in the back and I'm like, why is the back of my car wet and the trunk back there? Right up against here where the bumper meets the body of the car, where it's all bolted together right here, it was wet. Well, it wasn't just wet, but there's dust back there and there's dirt and stuff and dirt roads and stuff like that, right? So what happens? Mix water and dust and dirt, you get mud, right? It goes back to what I was saying on these cars. Open the trunk of your car, dig around back there, make sure that everything is good, make sure it's not wet, because if it's wet, more than likely you have a seal somewhere missing and it could cause major problems down the road. And I'll tell you, one of the main places that these cars will rust, no matter where you're from, no matter if you're from up north and you have to deal with salt, or down south, is right back here where the ground effects bolt to the body of the car. This is where a lot of that water tends to settle at, is right in here and right back along this bumper line. So make sure that the seals on the back of your tail lights are good. Never really thought of that before. I was always like, they just keep dust out. So now I see why those things have gaskets around them, and it is to keep water out. So it does matter. Make sure that your lights are pulled up tight and snugly to the car. That way everything seals off. Just trying to help, guys. You know, it's little things like this that we learn along the way. And if you've never dealt with a Foxbody, this could be a problem area on the car. So I got a lot of feedback on Yellow Wolf. I mentioned something about selling the car and you guys really responded. Seems to be kind of a split right now, about a 50-50 mix on what everybody is thinking to do with the car. I'm completely undecided. It's just me talking right now. I'm not sure. I hate seeing this car sit here. And I know a lot of you guys are like, well, just drive it. It's not that easy. I just enjoy driving my Foxbody. But I do feel pretty sure I will miss this car if I get rid of it. I love Terminators, guys. Don't think that I only love Foxbodies. Terminators are still more or less my dream cars. I had a 2003 Cobra back in the day with a 3.4 Whipple on it. The car, believe it or not, was not as fun as it was just pulleyed. That leads me to the second Terminator I've owned. This car has a 2.8 Mammoth Kenny Bell on it. Makes 25 pounds boost. We do not know how much horsepower the car makes, but it does make a good bit. So it's on E85, so it's somewhere in the 7s. It should make 7 something to the wheels. You know what? This thing isn't going to go out there and outrun, you know, street speed 717, 720 McLaren or anything like that. It's fast. We don't know how fast it is. I know a lot of you guys are asking for me to take it to the track, but it's just not a track car. And look, guys, I'm very familiar with the track, just so we know. It's just something I don't really talk about. But you know what? I pretty much grew up at the track. I've always been around track cars. We've had race cars before. With this car, it's going to need so much work to be able to be track worthy. You know, we might take it to the track at some point, but don't expect great numbers out of it. Anyway, guys, I kind of rambled on that a little bit, but as you can see, I'm still tossing around a lot of ideas with the Terminator. We may get rid of it, we may not. I don't know. Only time will tell. Well, all right, guys, me and Memphis are going to close this thing out. As always, thanks for watching.